you'd invested $10,000 into Realty Income Trust, ticker symbol O. If you had done that around, let's say, the inception day of the fund, which is around 1995, let's say you did it at the very start of the year. If you did that, your $10,000 would be worth over $430,000 right now. That's over a 14% rate of return, and that's with dividends reinvested. With a dividend yield of 4.74% and dividend growth for over 30 years, is it possible that this dividend aristocrat is the king of REIT? Because it's going to take a lot to compete with its performance over the past 30 years. And so the first thing we should probably discuss is the fact that this is actually a triple net lease type of REIT. So there are different types of REITs, and this does happen to be a triple net lease. So if we do compare this to, let's say, a full service lease, for example, the tenant's responsibility in that type of lease is going to be just rent and utilities, for example. The landlord's going to have all the other responsibilities. But if you have a triple net lease, the tenant's responsibility can be property taxes, insurance, maintenance, rent, and utility bills. And let's say you don't have a triple net lease. You're sitting there, you're enjoying your time at work, you're on a break, and you're getting a little hot. So of course, you know what? You turn on the air conditioning, but it doesn't work. Well, good thing I don't have a triple net lease. I'll just text my landlord. So if you don't have a triple net lease, you call your landlord and hopefully they come and they fix the air conditioning and you don't have to pay anything out of pocket. Now, what if you have a triple net lease? Now you go and you try to turn on the air conditioning, it doesn't work, and maybe you're not too happy. I have a triple net lease. Son of a... And so obviously in this situation, it could be good if you don't have to go and repair your air conditioning and it has to be your landlord that does it, but it's not always going to be like that. And when you are a landlord by owning a REIT in a way, well, it can be beneficial to have a triple net lease in the times when interest rates are rising, because as it gets more expensive to fix air conditioning, well, as triple net lease REIT owners, we're not going to necessarily have to shell out money to do things like that. There can be pros and cons to the different types of REITs that we own, but okay, here we go, the juicy stuff, all right? This is a graphic I created for us. Now, this is actually going to be visualizing how you get to something called FFO. So FFO is going to be funds from operations, and what you're gonna see here is on the left side of this graphic, you're gonna see the portfolio annualized contract rent by industry. Now, this is essentially the revenue that we're going to be booking inside Realty Income. And we're going to go over here. We're going to see all the revenues when they flow into this big green bar. That's $3.3 billion. And we're going to follow that green line until it gets to net income. Now, the problem with net income with REITs is that it doesn't tell us anything. It just doesn't work for REITs. It works for other companies and other industries, but it does not work for REITs. So what we have to do is we have to continue going past net income and figure out how to get to funds from operations. So we're going to talk about how to get to funds from operations, or FFO. But let's go on the left side again and take a look at the portfolio annualized contract rent by industry, because we want to see where some of the revenues are coming from this company. So we have retail. And so what's happening here is these companies, let's say they are leasing their spaces from Realty Income. We have companies like Dollar General, Kroger, the Home Depot, AMC, Regal, Walmart, Sam's Club, Walgreens, tons of companies that we know. So we're talking about really, really good companies, really strong corporations that are actually leasing from this company. Now we can see that this is the largest portion of revenue, $2.7 billion, and it's actually up 60% year over year, that retail segment of the revenue. Below that, we have the industrial segment. That is actually 15% of revenues, $495 million, so much smaller. And we have companies like FedEx, for example, who are going to be tenants essentially of Realty Income. And then we have other, which is $74 million. It's basically nothing. And then we have another other revenue, which is essentially nothing as well. Basically, most of this is coming from retail with a bit of industrial, and you can see some of these brand names. That's not all of them. But you get to revenues, you get to $3.3 billion in revenues, and it's actually up 61% year over year. Nice, huge, giant gain in revenue right here. And then we go over to EBIT, and most of this part isn't going to be important to us, but the one thing I do want to show you here is that the gain on sale of real estate is important for us to get to the funds from operations. So we have 103 million there, and then we have depreciation and amortization, which is really big for FFO as well. So that's actually also 1.7 billion. So that's a huge portion of this. That's up 86% year over year. So now let's go over to the FFO calculation. So what do? Well, we take net income, $869 million. Now you're going to add a few things and subtract a few things here to get to FFO. So basically you're going to take the gain on the sale of real estate. You're going to subtract that out. Why are you doing that? Well, we're really trying to smooth out, let's say, what real cash is on this company, right? So maybe this isn't going to be a normal operating type of thing that happens every year. So let's just take that out. We're going to take that kind of large lump part out of there. And then we're going to say depreciation and amortization is really an accounting type of thing. It's not really going to be sucking out, let's say, cash out of our pockets. It's really for accounting purposes. So we're going to actually add this back in, and this gives us 2.4 billion of funds from operations, or FFO. Now you can actually go further on this. You can go to AFFO, which is an adjusted type of format, but I'm not going to do that because, well, various reasons, but this is where we're stopping on this one. Now that we have FFO, we're going to do some other things to figure out how much we think the REIT is worth. We have funds from operations. We have the current funds from operations are $4.02 per share. That's FFO per share. And let's go and look at some growth rates over the past. 7.7% is the average 5-year rate of growth on the FFO per share. 3.7% is the median. So we have a discrepancy here, and that is because the FFO this year has grown much more over the past few years. And so you have to say, okay, well, do you want to go with the 7.7 or 3.7, maybe something in the middle? What I'm doing is I'm going to go with a 4.5% rate of return, and I'm going to forecast that for a few years. And I actually did a few different rates of return over different year periods, but basically $4.18 per share in 2023. Then we get by 2027, we have $5.13 in FFO per share. And that's generally going to be a 5% rate of return overall to get to that number. So we're growing FFO at 5% over the next few years up until 2027. Now we got to figure out the multiple that we want to use to figure out what we think this is worth. Okay, so we have the current price to FFO. Now think of this just as like, you know, you've heard of a PE ratio, a price to earnings ratio. That's just a multiple on the earnings to the price of the stock, right? So we're going to do a multiple on FFO, the same thing you do with a PE ratio. So it's at 15.76. Okay, the 5-year average though is much higher, 19.8. So do we want to be more at 15.76, or do we want to be more closer to the 5-year average? The 5-year median is also close to the average. Okay, well, maybe let's be a little conservative here, but not too conservative where we're going with a 15. So what do? I'm going to go with the FFO first, and I'm going to multiply that by the multiple, and I'm going to use a multiple of 17, and we get $71 per share. This is the forecast for this year. So basically what I'm doing is I'm forecasting FFO. Again, remember it was like 4.5% or something like that. By the multiple, boom, 71 per share. That's what I get. Next, what is this for an upside potential for us? So again, we got the share price, $64.50. We got 2023 forecast, 71 per share. What is that? That's a 21% upside for us. Now that is with dividends reinvested, right? So if you took your dividend out of this, you would not get this rate of return to be less. But again, it'd still be decent. Now, this might not happen. Remember, I'm going to project a multiple here, multiple expansion. So it's going from around 15-ish for a multiple up to around 17-ish, meaning that I need that multiple to expand for this to happen partly, and also I need FFO to increase partly. So I need two things to happen for me. This may not happen this year, so whatever. Okay, let's say it happens by 2027. What are my projections here? So $64.50 is the current price. Again, 2027 forecasted is $87 per share. When I project the FFO growth going forward, I get an upside of 12% compound annual growth rate for me if I reinvest the dividends. And so that's what I think this could potentially be worth, and what I could potentially earn from owning this stock into the future until the year 2027. So, okay, I think this could potentially be a good investment. Now, a few things. You're battling interest rates right now. You have higher interest rates. So the yield on this doesn't look as exciting probably as some other places, like just general bonds right now that have no risk. So there is that. The next thing though, let's see if we can compare this to some of its peers. Here we're looking at Realty Income, of course. That's the one on the top here. But then we have FRT, Federal Realty Investment Trust, and we have ESS, which is Essex Property, and these are actually also dividend aristocrats. So we're comparing 3 dividend aristocrats here. Now, the final balance, if you invested $10,000 since, again, back to like the start of 1995, you get $430,000 with Realty Income. So next we have FRT. That thing is only $194,000. So this has not performed as well. And if we look at ESS, it actually has performed better than Realty Income Trust. So we can take a look maybe at another video one day to see ESS and compare that. But right now it does look like a bit more risk for having ESS over the past from Realty Income, a standard deviation of 20.56 versus 21.33, and a much higher max drawdown for ESS with negative 59.46% down, where OREIT only had 38% down as its worst. So we're talking a much lower maximum drawdown than ESS for OREIT. So basically, these are interesting. Maybe we'll do something on ESS one day. Let me know in the comments if you do want to see that. But that's all I have for this. Hope you enjoyed the video. Now, if you want to see a video on how to invest $100, $1,000, or $10,000, take a look at this video right here, and disclaimer here. See you next time.